Hey, it's Kunal, commercial product photographer, and today I'll take you behind the scenes of this beautiful beer shot, which is one of the visuals from a project that I shot recently. And we'll talk about the brief, the attention to detail, the styling part, the art direction, and the camera and lighting gear I used to create this photo. Right, so let's get started. Now, the brief for this project was to showcase El Aguila's beer cans and beer bottles in the Spanish outdoor environment, right? And by the way, El Aguila is a brewery here in Spain. So we wanted to show their beer cans and beer bottles in the outdoor environments of Barcelona in a nice sunny environment, right? So for this, we created a series of photos and animations where in some photos we also used AI along with photography to show these beer bottles in the outdoor environment of Barcelona ports. And in other visuals like this one, the idea was to have all the attention on the product itself by keeping the background simple. So if you look at the photo, the attention stays on the product as the background is simple, but at the same time, it is an outdoor environment, right? So the angle is such that you see the products against a nice blue sunny sky so that the viewer's attention will stay on the beer can itself, right? There are a lot of interesting things going on in here. Like the one, specific thing about this beer brand is that they use a yeast in their beer, which you have to activate by tilting the bottle or the can upside down. So when you do that, when you tilt the bottle upside down, it will activate the yeast and it will release all the flavors in the beer, right? So that's the USP of this brand. And for that reason, you will see that the first can has been tilted upside down and the second can is standing straight. And also the branding is such like I mean, if you look carefully at the beer can, the branding is such. So some text is written upside down so that either way when you're holding the can straight or tilted it upside down, you will still be able to read something on the beer can, right? So the branding is very unique here. Now again, one of the challenges when you're shooting a beer can is, I mean, as opposed to shooting a beer bottle, is that it is very easy to make a beer bottle look appetizing because there you can create this nice glow in the bottle to make it look interesting. But when you're shooting a beer can, you can only rely on the styling and the lighting, right? So the styling becomes really, really crucial when you're shooting a beer can. And by styling, what I mean is the condensation drops and the ice slush that you see on the beer can. So I have very, very carefully done the styling here, and I've intentionally arranged the beer like this, the composition that you see, where the camera is looking up at the beer cans so that the product will look very heroic and larger than life, right? And again, if you see in the first beer can, the entire branding is in tack sharp focus, and I'll show you how I've done that later on. But the idea is that the branding has to be clear because if you look at my style, the way I shoot products is all by always using a shallow depth of field. So although the second beer can is out of focus, but the first beer can has the branding very, very clear, even though the camera is looking up at the product. So when you are shooting up at the product, looking at this angle, and you focus at a specific point, then the other part of the product will go out of focus. But I have solved that issue by using a tilt shift lens, and I'll show you later how I've done that. So that's about the composition here. Now let's look at the styling part. So again, as I said, that styling becomes really crucial when you're shooting beer cans. So I'm very, very careful about the way I'm putting this ice slush on the beer cans or the way I'm putting the condensation droplets on the beer can, because I want to make the condensation look very, very realistic. And for that, again, if you look at the photo, you will see that the condensation drops are of different sizes, right? Some are smaller drops, some are bigger drops, because I wanted to make it look very authentic and real, as if you have just pulled out the cans from a refrigerator, right? And although you would never see in real life these ice slush on the beverages, but we have to do certain things in advertising to make the products look very appetizing, right? Now let's look at the art direction part here. And one interesting thing that I do is that I use an external screen whenever I'm shooting products in my studio, because most of the times I'm working alone, and that's the way I have created my workflow in a certain way. So I always use an external screen to see what the camera is seeing, right? So while I'm arranging the products on the set, I can see exactly what the camera is seeing, so I can make this entire process very efficient, right? So the other way would be that you have an assistant do this thing for you, and you would be looking through the camera screen and guiding the assistant that, make the can slightly rotated to the right side, or take it back a bit, or do this and that. So I can avoid all of that by simply using an external screen and looking at the screen while I'm arranging the products on the set, right? And as I've explained, earlier, that I have kept this angle because I wanted to make the beer look very heroic and larger than life, right? So when it comes to lighting, for this particular project, I used, I think, almost 2 to 3 small Forza 60B2 lights, and I really enjoy using these lights because of the form factor. These are very, very small lights, and I can take it very close to the product easily on a boom arm, right? So really enjoy using these lights as opposed to using the big lights, where you are restricted with the way you can use it. Because the bigger lights, you have to keep them on a stand in a certain position only. Whereas when I'm using these small form factor lights like the Forza 60B2 from Nanlite, I can take them anywhere I want, closer to the product, or at any angle I can place them very easily using boom arms, right? But the hero light of this project was the Power Slim 120C from Nanlite, as you can see here. And this is the light which I used to create this nice beautiful sky background, right? So that the background that you see in the photo. Because the interesting thing about using this light is that using the Nanlite app, you can point the app or your phone's camera to anything that you want to take the color from. So for instance, like in this case, I just pointed the camera to the sky to take the color value from the sky, right? So I took the blue color value from the sky, and then the app automatically created the same color in the light, right? So this is the advantage of using this particular light, which is an RGB light, so you can have any sort of colors that you want. And that is how I got this nice blue sky in the background, right? And for the camera gear, I'm using the Nikon Z9 camera along with the tilt shift lens, which is 85 PCE. And for these situations, whenever I'm looking up at the product, and at the same time, if I want to have the entire plane in focus, like, let's look at the photo once again. So you see at the first beer can, the entire text is in focus even when I'm looking up at the product. So this is made possible by using a tilt shift lens. So that's the choice of my lens for this particular shoot, as you can see here. So it makes it very, very easy when you're using a tilt shift lens as opposed to doing a focus stack, right? So even if you don't have a tilt shift lens, if you're using a regular macro lens, or whichever lens you're using, you can still achieve the same result by doing focus stacking. But in that case, then you will have the entire scene in tack sharp focus, right? Or you would have to manually mask it out so that you keep the front of the can in focus and you still have a shallow depth of field. But that process becomes a little tedious. And the easiest way to achieve this sort of a result is by using a tilt shift lens, right? So this is how I created this particular shot. Now, if you have any questions regarding product photography or lighting or camera gear, feel free to drop your question in the comment, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.